Welcome to our Budget Committee special meeting for the Jinx Aquarium Authority. Today is Thursday, April 28th. It is 11:40 a.m. It's roll call, please.
OJ?
Here.
Henry? Here. Jeff?
Here. All right, item number 1 under general business is request to discuss and review the general manager's recommended biennial budget for the fiscal year 2022 through 2024 and related documents. Item number 1.
Chair and members of the JAA Budget Committee, we have our budget presentation for you. We, in the memo, we kind of highlighted any significant changes, and our finance director, Robert Sauceda, will go through those now.
Thank you. So before we begin, I just wanted to introduce Ronald Tomas. He is Cody McCall's replacement. Cody moved on, I guess, back in June or October. So this is the person in charge of the budget process for us.
Cody moved to Brazil, so good for him.
How long was Cody here?
He was here for
A year and a half.
and he did quite a lot of work, kind of redoing our budget presentation. So
And we won the award.
the Government Finance Officers Association. So
Welcome.
So we're going to start off with the revenues for year 1 and year 2. So the Brandon goes going with those stripes. Rotate that. So overall, the largest revenue producer for the aquarium is admission, right? We have our ticket sales and the e-tickets. And the approach that we took here was to look at the previous 6 months of this current fiscal year and do an average monthly admissions, and then we multiplied it out with the new admissions rate, which is $2 higher than the current fiscal year. We implemented a $1 increase back in July and then a $1 increase this March. So that's the revenue. It came out to about 4.2 million, and that's split between ticket sales and e-tickets. The other one is memberships. Here we did a 12-month trailing average, monthly average, multiplied by the new rate for memberships. Back in July, we increased those prices. I believe it was $5 at the bottom of the first tier for individuals, and then $10 for the upper 3 tiers. So that's the monthly average multiplied by the new price rate, and that's the budget there of $720,000.
and I might just mention that this is somewhat difficult because we had COVID and then we had post-COVID, and so obviously with COVID, we saw a substantial decline in revenue, and then post-COVID, starting in January of 21, we saw our strongest revenue that we've had on record, and so even the third quarter, which would have been January through March, pretty much held up to the third quarter of 21, but for the month of April, we're seeing that we are lagging a little bit behind April of 21. So, these numbers are really our best guess, but.
Well, even with memberships, the budget was $585 currently, and we're just less than $12,000 away from achieving that budget with the month of May and the month of June still ahead of us. So I don't think a $720,000 revenue for memberships is that lofty.
But in your calculation, you were assuming about the same attendance as the previous year.
Right, the same membership sales. Yes.
And I should say that when I talk about revenue, memberships continues to outperform last year. It's some of the other areas that were a little bit behind for the month of April.
So arcade machines, hurricane simulator, we just decided to leave those as a current year budget. VR simulator, that one is doing well. We upped the budget there. Just to jog your memory, we do a 50-50 revenue split with InMotion, with the gross revenue being reflected on our revenue, and the 50% that we actually pay out is part of the expense budget under operating operations 911. We have the press painting machine, which is a new kind of attraction. We have a photo booth, which we share 41%, 59% with a vendor. That revenue also kind of works with the VR machine, where what you see listed here, the $20,000, that's actually cash that we collect from the machine, and we true it up with the credit card activity that is handled by the vendor. And at the end of every month, we true up, whether we send them a check or they send us a check for the revenue split, and that's 41%, 59% split. The carousel, this is based on the estimate that it will be up and running in October. So of 9 months of revenue there.
Kenny, is that still looking roughly correct?
Yes, it is.
The vending machine ATM, kind of minor revenue there, just keeping it the same. Event sales with the addition of the carousel, we do know that that's going to eat into some of the event sales. So that's the reduction in revenue there, partially because of the carousel, but also partially just based on current year performance, previous year performance. The gift shop, there is a 30 previous revenue from the previous fiscal year, 49,000. So if you're comparing it to current year performance, there it is skewed because we did collect some revenue from the previous fiscal year. That's incorporated into those numbers. So we think that 175 is a little bit more accurate. Cafe Deli, they're showing signs of improvement with the increase in admissions, bumped that up to 90. Halmery kind of keeping it the same. Event catering, again, the reduction there with the sales of events. E-tickets, that's kind of just splitting out the admission revenue budget between ticket sales and e-tickets, both to total about 4,250,000. Grants and donations, this is a $20,000 standard budget as we receive miscellaneous grants and donations throughout the year. And then the additional 40 is for the Director of Research salary contribution from OAF, and that totals $60,000. Fish food, just based on current year performance, doing well. Same thing with wishing well, keeping that slight reduction there. Stroller rentals, with the agreement of the gift shop that is based on the revenue percentages of 10, 15%, 18%, so there was a reduction in revenue there. Miscellaneous, last year we incorporated the state's marketing money in that specific line item. This year we decided to break that out, so that's why you'll see the reduction of going from 115,000 down to 800 or 8,000, which is the rent that the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation pays to the aquarium. That's where that gets booked. The aquarium run event, about 50,000, so we decided to scale that back just based on current year performance. Fish and fireworks, just a slight revision upwards based on current year performance. Special events left that same. Exhibit donations, just a slight reduction. I think we.
On your fish and fireworks, I mean, your previous year was over 17,000.
Mm-hmm.
I know you had a forecast for 10, but is that, but you put in 16.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seemed like that was a really successful event the way we did it last year. I'm assuming we'll do something similar or better this coming year. Are that a little conservative?
Well, I think over time, I mean, that has varied relatively drastically. I mean, and it was successful last year, but I think again, part of looking at last year's success on some of these revenue numbers, I don't know that it's going to continue.
Then we were thinking also with the aquarium parking lot project, I'd say $3,000 to $4,000 of that revenue came from selling parking spots, right?
Mm.
That if there is construction going on,
Okay.
that it could kind of eat into that revenue.
Yeah, when that's physically starting.
No idea.
Do you know?
Well, the new UDO has updated parking lot requirements, and so we had designed the parking lot before that UDO was adopted. And so right now, Greg is looking at the new requirements versus what we plan to put in. And so I think we're hoping to get this thing started as soon as possible. But I think we're still a couple weeks away from knowing exactly when we provide the contractor a notice to proceed.
Special events, kind of left that just the current year levels. Exhibit donations, there was a slight reduction there eventually with the bracelet sales or shark teeth or whatever new product we're trying to kind of decide on. I think there will be eventually a point that we reach saturation that people will no longer want to donate $3 for a bracelet. The holiday inn rent or leisure hospitality, just bump that up a little bit more. The number there does include some back payments, so it kind of skews the current year-to-date activity. Interest, just left alone, interest on investments. That one revised up. We are seeing better rates on our CDs and treasury bills, so we hope to do better.
Don't we have like over 3 million in the fund balance?
We do.
And you're gonna make $1,000 on it.
So 1,000 is what's kept at bank first or checking, which is dependent on the Federal Reserve's interest rate, right? So far they've only moved to 0.25. The interest on investments, that is on CDs and treasury bills. So those are doing much better at these rates. So like we purchased a 1-year treasury bill at 1.5% versus a 0.01 at bank first. Education, just kind of rolled that back based on current year performance. Veteran donations left it at 50,000. That's the commitment from OEF.
Kenny, who took Alyssa's place, or do we have a direct replacement for her?
Yes, so we hired a education specialist. Her name is Tegan. And we have Hallie has, in all practical purposes, stepped into her place.
She's doing exactly what Alyssa was doing.
Yes, and Alyssa had a little bigger role in social media, but since we hired Lolly, she has taken over that as well.
So Hallie had been basically working for Alyssa, and so when Alyssa left, Hallie stepped up.
Yeah, Hallie has really taken the reins and has been pretty impressive at handling the education department and education groups, things like that.
So that brings our total operating revenue to 6.9 million. Below is kind of the usage of fund balance if we need it. We have the standard 500,000 operating shortfall from JWA to the aquarium. Last year we didn't have to use that, and this year it's kind of looking like the same result as well.
Just a question. When I look through the capital items, there's, it affects, I think, where those numbers are. But you've got basically 140,000 of that was from specific projects we'd approved as JAA. And so that's designated to come out of the fund balance we have.
Unless the operations, there's a surplus that covers.
Right.
Where we initially said we'll use fund balance, well, we generated so much revenue and expenses were lower than anticipated, then it covered that additional capital outlay.
Okay.
The current year is a little bit different because again, we have to wait till the end of the year to actually know how much our operations are and our the final count for our expenses. So for the presentation, they were left blank.
Okay.
So then the following items, capital items, personnel in 941, and risk management is our standard $30,000 into our kind of rainy day fund that we pay for employees' health insurance reimbursements on an as-needed basis. But it's mainly just for risk management and insurance. So capital items and personnel, those tie in with the expense in those particular departments that we'll cover when we get into expenses. Do you have any questions on revenues?
No, I don't.
Oh, I did have one question. Mechanical bull shark, okay. Physically, it goes away into storage at some point for the carousel project. And then you're just, I assume that's just thinking that you'll bring it out occasionally for events?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
When does the bull shark get pulled?
Excuse me, what did you say?
When are you gonna,
Oh, when we're gonna pull it? August.
August?
Yeah.
So you
'cause
have
that's
till
when the-
July to ride it?
Yeah.
No, what I'm saying is just the income from it is what I'm
Right.
looking at.
So August, we're gonna pull it,
Jim's
in
kidding.
order for the infrastructure, that's gonna start.
It's gotta
Be in
be-
its place.
The thought there, yeah, we'll pull it out for special events, whether it's OEF splash or a birthday party requested, or not birthday party, but an event requested, that there's at least some sort of revenue there, that it's not just going down to zero.
And
I know,
we'll
it was
be-
so low, I thought, well, you don't know what it's gonna be between
Exactly.
vendors.
And we will be receiving a pretty nice bounce house that normally we rent. And then, based on a customer's request, they pay it, they pass that on to them, but this new bounce house that we're getting is really, really nice and impressive, and so we will be using that to rent for events and things like that, so there'll be some revenue stream there.
So it's something you're purchasing?
Yes.
Okay.
Any
So
other
many of those
questions?
get so dirty, it's like, but great.
Any more questions for Robert on revenues? Okay, thank you.
Next, for expenses, overall, we're projecting a 3% standard increase for our employees, apart from anything that the department may have requested specifically for an employee.
Just want to ask a couple of framing questions here. Just generally through all of the expense numbers, how do you handle the impact of inflation?
So we increased, in various parts, materials and supplies. You'll see that in, exhibits at 913, that the cost of salt or animal feed, that kind of all rolls up to materials and supplies. That's being increased. Utilities in 919, that's being increased. We've, since the last freeze, O&G has kind of ramped up their costs. So we've incorporated increases in year one and then added padding to it as well.
Okay, so to frame it a little differently, it sounds like you bake in a little bit more inflationary impact to year one. And then kind of year two is probably a little more back to normal-ish inflation. Okay. All right, that's helpful. And the other goes to the pay thing. Because we talked about this last year, we talked about it at JAA meetings. I do think we have a social contract we're not fulfilling here. That's a pretty standard raise, and well below inflation. By the way, inflation last year in 2021, the year average was 4.7%. And there have been years where I think we told the staff, hey, look, we're not making money, so raises are gonna be really low or non-existent. And just wait till we make money. I know those conversations have gone on. And we're making money now. And this feels like we're not fulfilling our social contract.
Well, when we talk about across the board raises, historically, if the city and JPWA are getting 3 or 4%, the aquarium would get 2%. And so here we're suggesting a 3% raise for aquarium employees and for, I know we're not talking about it right now, but city and JPWA employees. And I think what sometimes all of us may forget about is 2 years ago, there were substantial raises. I mean, way more, I mean, in some cases, more than 10% for specific employees. So the management team at the aquarium identified, I would say, 10 to 15 different employees that have been high performing, and they were given substantial raises. Sometimes I think even, something like 20%.
No, I haven't forgotten that, Chris.
Yeah,
I was
so-
involved in all of that too.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the employees as a group, not the employees individually here.
And also to kind of add another layer to it, when we say we could incorporate padding, that allows us the flexibility. Like last year in July, because inflation was so hot, that we gave the standard raise, and that was based on the tiers. But then we also gave everyone a stipend, a one-time cash payment of 3%. So if we see that happening again, we will come before the authority and ask. We think that this is a good time to combat the inflationary pressures.
Well, and my point is, I think we just should budget. I totally understand the impact of things like that. And, I spent most of my business career dealing with issues like this. But, I think we have clearly made statements to the employees in the past that said, it'll get better when things get better. Well, guess what? Things are better.
I would concur with you. I have no problem with it, and I do think it needs to be budgeted.
And, whether you wanna put another 2% in this year as just, a one-time thing, or you wanna change that first year number, I'm okay either way. But I think we owe it to them for some of the rewards of what they did through the last several years. And, there were years where, they knew that the city of James was getting more of a raise than they were getting. Was that fair? No, I didn't think it was fair then. I understood we had a reason for it. I don't see that reason.
Well, and, we're sitting here basically looking at the past and trying to predict revenues. And I've said this at least to Robert for years now, that why are we, that this is backwards, that, we assume we're gonna have more income or more revenue, and so we budget in a raise, whether it's for the aquarium, city, JPWA, on the front end as opposed to addressing it on the back end. And I even said it to Robert this year is, in my opinion, the most responsible way to do this is at the end of the year, if we're gonna budget something at the beginning of the year, have it be a stipend for the employees. And if at the end of the year, the revenues met the expectation, then that stipend becomes a permanent raise the next fiscal year. And when we look at revenues and think we're going to increase, then we have another stipend at the beginning of July based on what we think is going to happen. And then if revenues come in like we thought it would, then at the end of the year, again, we say, okay, the revenues did what we thought they were going to do. So now next fiscal year, this is your raise, and just do it that way as opposed to.
Well, what you're basically saying is structuring it as a bonus program.
Well,
That's in essence what it is. We did well, there's a bonus. If we want to do that, I'm fine with that too, but you budget it. You budget, I did budgets in corporate America for 32 years. And you never know if you're gonna have a good year or a bad year. You never know. but you go in with a certain set of expectations and a certain set of assumptions that you think are reasonable. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're way low, sometimes you're way high, you never know. But you go in with a plan, and it's rarely, okay, we're at the end, let's look at it, unless you're basically saying, it's in essence kind of a bonus program, but you know what? If that's your goal, you put it in the budget. And then it either happens or it doesn't happen. You don't wait till the end and say, because then your employees have no expectations, they have no guideline of what could happen if things go well or what could happen if things don't go well.
Are you opposed to the bonus structure, the idea of a bonus?
I'm not opposed to it as long as it's a structure and as long as we agree to it and we budget for it.
But do you believe, because, I'm familiar with the world you came from, but do you believe that walking through the aquarium, just pick any one person, do you really believe that a 3 or 4% increase in pay motivates them throughout the year to do their job any better?
Hard to tell.
By the way, I'm not
don't
even
know.
being devil's
some
advocate
people-
here. I'm just kind
Some
of.
people may, some it won't.
I agree, with Chris. If you want us, this is a cost of living adjustment. We'll call it what it is. If it's just, hey, everybody deserves it, let's call it what it is.
The problem with, don't worry if things look good, then we'll do something. The problem with that is, great, we have another election and several council members change or folks from the OAF change, where, that implicit promise is now gone because it's all these different people. If you budget it and you put it on paper, it's way more real. And, I don't, this will be the third year in a row we've said, trust us, something will happen. And I think we have to do better than that. I think we have to budget for those things, so we plan for those things.
So it doesn't sound like you're opposed to this idea of if the aquarium performs well, then employees get rewarded after the fact. That's.
I don't care how you structure it, whether you say, mid-year, we're gonna do some additional payout, or end of the year, we're gonna do some additional payout. As long as we're still doing okay, we're within some targeting of budgets, that's okay. That's okay, that's more like the corporate world. But, my main point is that I believe, based on history, that I've been involved in this a long time, that, there is a social contract with those employees that, we've said, trust us through the tough times and we'll treat you better when things are better. Well, okay, they trusted us through the tough times. Where's the other side of that ledger? I haven't seen it. It's not in the budget. I think you need to put it in the budget.
Robert, do you think it's premature to say things are better? Because I think you're a very cautious person. I want your honest opinion. Are things better, and are they going to stay better? I want to hear from inside your head if we're in the
pre-COVID. We were there almost like we're going to break even. We're going to generate enough revenue to cover our debt service, and then the flooding happened, or then COVID happened, and we had a $500,000 loss or $800,000 loss.
Well, we were hemorrhaging money during COVID. I mean,
Everybody was.
a lot of other organizations laid people off. And I said from the very beginning, we're not going to lay anybody off. We have the fund balance. So because we benefit from the fund balance, we're not going to lay anybody off organization-wide, even though we were hemorrhaging, up to one point, it was like $1 million that we were, we had expenses versus revenues. We were down $1 million. And, then we came out of this a lot stronger.
Which would be a great example of a year where you say, guys, there's nothing there at the end.
Yeah, see, I guess I thought that we were, and since I've been here under, when I was assistant city manager, to my knowledge, the aquarium never got the same increase in pay as the rest of the employees. And that's what I was thinking this year, when we're saying 3% and 3% for city and JPWA and for the aquarium employees, and the fact that we substantially increased salaries for specific employees that Kenny and his team thought were high performers, I thought that we were rewarding these
Well,
people,
you know, those people got dealt with a year to 2 years ago. We didn't do it 8 months ago. You know, we did that a while ago. And that's great. We needed to do that. We were way behind in those areas. Okay, so we fixed one problem. I'm more talking about the employees as a generic group, of which, you can argue, well, now we're treating you the same as a city employee. Well, really? Why did you not treat me like a city employee all those other years? Well, it's because you guys were losing money. Oh, okay. We aren't losing money now. So now we're just gonna treat you like everybody else. But I think during those time periods, there were a lot of other conversations here and there that said, you know what? When things turn, we're gonna make things a little more right. And I don't think we're doing that yet.
Well,
it's the same thing I said last year when we approved the second year of the budget at JAA, and that my opinion hasn't changed there. I checked with Harvey and Jeff, and their recollection of some of those conversations is very similar to mine. I think the concern is always, well, if you said, okay, and I don't know 2% is the right number, but just for generically, if you said, well, no, we give a 5% raise, okay, well, that tends to have a compounding effect going forward. I totally understand that. Again, I've done these budgets, as much as anybody. So, if you want to structure a different kind of program because, if the city employee does their job, city's not gonna make one more dollar. Somebody at the aquarium does their job right, you know what, we might make another dollar. Don't know that, but we might, because we're a customer business. City's not exactly, now, you have people that do deal with customers on the front end, but the vast majority of the city doesn't. So, it's always been to me a difference that the employees at the aquarium, yeah, they're city employees because of the structure, but is what they do the same as what a city employee does? No, I think in many cases it's typically more specialized in some cases, and in others it's not. But we really haven't, I think, held up our end as things have turned.
well, I'm all for paying everybody a ton of money, but
I'm not. I'm not, because then you blow your budget.
Well,
That's not gonna, what we're talking about here isn't gonna blow your
I
budget.
think for the sake of time, you can make a proposal. I mean, you're a voting member.
Well, and that's what I've been doing, I thought.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think for the sake of time, if
I would suggest in the next draft that we include, some type of program at the end of the year that pays out another, pick a number, 2 or 3%. That, if we are making money, that we do.
And it's budgeted.
And it's budgeted.
Yeah.
Because in this, we make money, so it should be budgeted.
So I would agree that, and
Excuse me.
I've always thought of the aquarium from the beginning as a chance to. I mean, I see it as a profit center. It's got to make money. I don't look at it like a zoo. I heard some zoos never make a profit, but I think anything can be turned into a revenue engine if it's just done right. But so if you think we need to create a plan where we do the reward at the end of the year and it's budgeted in, then let this be the last time we do that this way. Why don't we just make the change?
I think we said.
And I want to ask you: is this
We did
is
say the same thing
3%?
last year.
Is this a reflection of what you want, Kenny, or is this a compromise? Does this keep your people happy and keep your culture running well? Is this what you need to keep thriving at the aquarium?
Well, there's a lot of factors involved.
Just
I
talk
don't
about the
mean to
most important one.
beat around the bush, but
Sure.
You know, it's
Well,
like
to
anybody.
his point, we,
So I do have to trust Robert, Chris, when they're crunching numbers. They've always kept us, above water. There are some factors. One of the big factors is, and I'll just say it, prior to Chris, there was no raises. So how do we catch up? I don't know the answer to that. If you try to compensate for the last 20 years, or 8 or 15 years, whatever, good luck. We'd have to have double budget. But, so there is that factor. The other factor is we took a huge loss by keeping everybody employed. And I don't think that should just be overlooked, because I don't know anybody in the industry that didn't get downsized. I have high-level colleagues such as the director of the Aquarium Pacific that just got fired. So I think that has to be taken into account and appreciated. As far as where we're at now and how we move forward, again, I'm just gonna have to trust Chris and Robert's methodology and experience. My job right now is to ensure we have plenty of money. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of that, and I think we're gonna have even more money. So that's where I start locking horns big time, is when I bring a carousel over here and ask for it. And I think we bulldogged that, and I think because of that, we got it passed, and we're gonna make more money. So I don't really have the answer on how much is enough to catch up for 15 years of abuse, lack of a better term. And that's all I can say about that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we can get back some of those years, but, when I look at the salary number, 2%, we're talking about $48,000. We're not talking about $1 million here, guys.
That was my next question.
Well, if I just take the salaries on your budget summary, salaries and wages, and multiply that by 2%, that's $48,000. So, we're not talking about something that is gonna make you default on your debt.
And you also have to think about, people, there is an increase in everything right now. There is an inflation.
And just a couple of things to with Kitty's speech here is, it's not us like knocking down any and every request that they throw our way. Yes, we would like to pay our employees more. If there is a specific employee that, like, hey, this person, we want to promote them, yes, we incorporate it. The other day, Janice called me and said, can we turn this person from part-time to full-time? Well, maybe not, but can we increase them in pay? Yes. Because there's flexibility in the budget, while it's not explicitly stated. Sure. $50,000, 2% additional of the 3. There is padding in the budget. That's what I refer to when I say padding. The next line I hear is a 5% increase in the health insurance. Well, that's not final. We are the first round,
They said 15%.
Exactly, 15%, so we're down to 8.5%. And as a reminder, we cover 100% of the employee's premium. So if insurance is increasing 8.5%, the city, the aquarium is footing the bill at no additional cost to the employee. So we are not in a private business or in the private sector. We are a municipality. The aquarium is part of the city. Yeah. While we may have lower wages from the private sector, we do outweigh that with the benefits. 100% paid employee premium, insurance premium.
Yeah, I know all of that. Yeah. Trust me, I've been through this, and this is probably my 5th budget committee meeting, or more. I don't even remember now. So, and I appreciate that, and I know the employees do too. But, even if you're 3.5% off on your health insurance, okay, that's $12,000. It's, again, none of these numbers make or break you in the larger term. But, excuse me, I think it's something we need to start looking at and including in the budget. That's what I propose. So, that's all I had to say about it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if you guys can get us to a point where we have a budgeted number and you guys come up with goals, and if they exceed them, because ultimately, you know what, I think the aquarium, when I walk through the building, I think people work there because they generally love to work there. I mean, when Alyssa left, I know where she's going, and I don't get it. That place is soulless. I don't get it. Some people leave for money, and some people work places because they truly love what they do. And I look at teachers all the time that get abused by 8th graders. I'm like, you must really love this. This must be what God intended for you to do, or this is what keeps you whole and what makes you want to come to work every day. But not everybody's wired that way. So I trust you to know your people. And I don't think everybody's going to do what they love forever, because sooner or later the husband or the wife puts the stress as we need to do more. You know, we want to have another child. We'd like to have a car that we don't, we'd like to have less stress when it comes to these things. So if you can keep the aquarium performing well, then we can create a plan. And I agree with Chris that, we can reward it after the end. I think if we can give people the motivation to work harder and to put more soul into it, even though they love what they're doing, but they're stressed from the spouse that says, hey, we need to do more. The daycare, but everything's going up. I mean, it's just getting insane. And frankly, when you look at the world stage right now, I don't necessarily know that we can continue to have carousels and putt-putt. I don't necessarily know that we'll continue to have this kind of growth with the things that you can predict might happen in the global future. So, but if we can make their numbers, and if you can change the culture, and you can get your people to work harder and build it faster and at less cost, then let's reward them. Because I'm all about paying people as much as you possibly can, reasonably speaking. So I can appreciate your conservativeness. I can appreciate him truly understanding the numbers behind the scenes. But I also agree with Keith that not everybody's going to stay and do that job, the job they love forever, if they're not getting paid. And if we do have a history of making verbal promises to people, then let's figure out a way to kind of make them whole over time. If we need to be more aggressive, then let's be more aggressive. Or if you need to back down from some of your big, hairy ideas that potentially could grow screwball, then put that off to the side for a year and then let's pay people. One less aggressive monster project that could go sour, and let's focus on our people.
Well, but I would say,
unless the projects are you guaranteed to generate the revenue.
I would say I'm all for whatever, increasing whatever, Trustee Montgomery, whatever amount. But when Kenny and I come in 6 months or a year and 2 years with another idea that we know is going to generate revenue, then let's all approve it. I mean,
have we not approved all of
I can't think of anything we haven't.
I know, but it's some of it has been difficult. I mean,
well, and it should be.
Well,
if you're gonna spend $800,000 or $600,000 out of the fund balance, it should be difficult. It should be like getting a root canal, because money didn't grow on trees.
Well, my viewpoint is I trust you inherently, right up to the point where I shouldn't need to anymore. When Kenny said I want to stick a carousel in the middle of the floor, I was thinking, that's not what I want to see when I walk in. I still don't have a blue whale hanging from the ceiling. That's all I've ever wanted.
They can do those.
And I'm thinking about a big spinny thing making noise, and then
generate money.
And then I look at all these parentheses, all the things that are going down in the budget because we can't do more events. I'm like, so there's a trade-off. This thing better make up for all the negatives that are on this sheet. And I'm trusting you that it will. And if it doesn't, then the conversation will change.
Well, some of the negatives that you see on this sheet are not really because something changed. I think it's because they realized that we've over budgeted that area for the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, maybe, but
and we've never spent the money, and so there's a lot of those they've adjusted back to something that's a little more reasonable.
Well, trust me, but these are real conversations. Yeah. Even with my wife, she goes, "There's going to be a big carousel in there." I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, how's that going? What about do we ever have weddings in the aquarium?" Will we ever have another one?
We did have
Probably
one,
not.
didn't we?
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
well,
No.
We can do them in the shark view.
Yeah,
And
strangely, most people want to do it in the shark view.
Yeah, there's been a shift in wants from our customers to not want to be in the Great Hall. Again, we only make about $50,000 a year profit on events. The bull shark makes that.
Yeah.
At one person at a time. I have absolutely no doubt the carousel is going to propel us forward. I believe it will either tie or be the second greatest, revenue generating item after ticket sales.
Okay.
And we've worked really hard to make that carousel custom looking and stunning to fit that spot, and will look a lot better than an inflatable bull shark, I think.
Yeah. Well, I would say this, Keith, don't forget, you've been here longer than her and I, so if you want to make a proposal change, then you can make it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing. I'm saying
We can-
We need to.
And I back you on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I do.
Yeah,
We don't-
and
I agree.
I don't know what the best approach is in terms of, look, I can leave that up to you guys to say, hey, we think this is the right approach, okay, fine. But it needs to budget it. And, it may be money you pay out or money you don't pay out.
Right.
But at least you budgeted it, so you haven't left it out of your thoughts.
Okay, so do you actually have a proposed change to this, or do we just want to talk about what we'll do next year?
Well, I mean, I can propose a change that, kind of.
Because if you're going to propose a change, we need time to debate it, unless you think we already have.
I think that's what we've been doing.
Okay. Well, I would like to.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
we're here.
So do you want the numbers to actually change on paper? Because if you look at one of the accounts, the number that you see in there, say if it's 100,000 in one account, well, their salary and wages may only be 90,000. The extra 10,000 is happening, right? So collectively, if you do want a 2% payout or a 3% payout at the beginning or at the end of the year, there is that leftover unspent money.
But that's
already
what I don't
in the
know.
budget.
You guys know that.
Right.
We don't know that. And so I think, I would task you to go back and look at it and say, yeah, we know we're not gonna hire that person for 4 months, so that's probably overstated by 5,000 here and 2,000 there, and maybe this is overstated by 10 or something, and come back and say, yeah, if we did that kind of program with, say, a 2% payout at the end of the year, assuming, we're somewhere near plan, then really it only changes the numbers by 20, or it may change the numbers by 50, I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about how you, again, doing budgets as long as I did, I know you hide stuff in a lot of funky places that nobody will ever find, but it's there.
Well, you pad a lot. I mean,
Well, it's a 3%
good.
increase.
Yeah.
We have a calculator of taking people's base rate plus longevity, plus the health insurance, plus all of the benefits, FICA, workers' comp, and that's the number that we think we're gonna incur, then we got 3%.
Yeah.
And then we round up.
So,
So that's,
yeah,
so there is enough dollar amount there if we want to do a program like you said, without revising the
that's what I
numbers.
would propose, and, you need to look at it, see if it's gonna change the numbers. And that's basically what I'm proposing we
Right.
change the budget.
So if we need to raise that budget, I think we're both agreeing
Yeah.
with, that's where you wanna put it, and we do compensate for that 2 to 3% or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's what you're hearing from all three of
Yeah.
the committee members.
So what if we did, we increased contingency in 9/11, 50,000, right now it's 25. The revenue is gonna increase
I would
500,000.
rather see it show up where it would go out, so it would show up as basically compensation. I mean, now, I don't know how your modeling is set up.
Okay, well, what's the percent that we're wanting here instead of 3?
What was your suggestion? Besides 20?
Well, it is your team, to keep good people, you want to make sure that there is an
Again,
incentive
We're talking
of
about
some
the
kind.
employee.
And don't worry,
employee
Kenny.
base as a whole, not.
Speak up, we'll keep you. We'll keep you around.
All right.
Don't be afraid.
Well, I do think there's some target employees, first of all, that,
And see, that's where, and I hate to interrupt Kenny, but that's what we're getting at is when we have these across the board, we have good employees and we have employees that don't perform. and we're in a situation right now where, I can't believe some of the stuff that I see from HR when I'm signing these personnel action forms about what employees have done, and I say, at what point do these people get terminated? I mean, it's insane, but we have to keep them because we can't go find somebody else, and then they're gonna get the same increase as somebody who is going above and beyond every single day. But
Well, every
But
time,
isn't a raise or a compensation based on their boss? I mean,
Well,
seriously?
well,
I
we do,
wouldn't compensate somebody who's doing a poor job and it's been written up several times that they get a raise.
well, we do, bonuses. We have the ability to do bonuses for, performing employees, and we do that. But I was under the impression we're talking about across the board raise. We have raised, like all our ticketing agents considerably because of the situation.
well, and that's in the plan.
And,
It's in the plan.
yeah, and so, and we have budgeted raises for this budget,
Yes.
for key employees. The wet side, I think, could use the most raises because, I think there is an imbalance there. But then again, we have to look at other aquariums, and we are about on par with what other aquariums pay their employees, even though those aquariums charge considerably more to walk in the door. Of course, they have more expenses too, but so I think we're on par with what other aquariums compensate their wet side. But then again, I don't think that's enough either. So whatever we do, I do think we need to focus on the biologists.
Well,
wet side.
I would suggest, we're not gonna solve it. We can try to solve it, but there's always but this and but that. And, it sounds like to me, the three of you need to sit down and come up with, hey, we heard you guys, and here's what we're gonna suggest. And, that's probably the safest way to do it. But, I mean, again, I think we do have we do owe people based on some of the past actions.
Yeah, I would agree. It sounds like you guys got a lot of work to do.
Now,
I mean, I don't give a person 1 penny of an increase if you have people in your workforce that I think he's describing that you can't replace, that constantly underperform. There's no room for toxicity in your environment. I don't care. Somebody's gonna have to work harder to replace them. You got to get rid of viruses. They just spoil the whole place. So to his point, well, we can't replace people. Yeah, you can just work harder. I don't know. Maybe you can. I don't know what it's like to work at the aquarium. Maybe we need to spend more time there. But 3%, we can change the number today if we want to make that proposal.
Yeah.
Across the board is an easy thing to do, but I wasn't aware that we have. I just thought everybody was happy as a clam that works there. I think if it's one of those jobs that people are called to do, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
well,
I
if
think
you're
it's something in between that.
Yeah, if you're,
Apparently that job is a low-paying job in the industry.
Yeah.
People do it out of passion.
but if you got a problem child in your department, Mr. Money, that's constantly, you wish that this person would just roll over and fall in the river tomorrow, and they're getting a 3% raise next week. Yeah, it tends to send the wrong message too. So maybe we need to rework this whole thing and figure out a way to reward people who actually.
yeah, I don't have a problem with that either.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but like I said, I think there's some happy medium between what I think I know about an aquarium and what he knows. I think his attitude is different. We don't want to lose anybody. Maybe it's too critical right now. We can't lose a single body.
We definitely can't lose it.
Okay.
Without replacing. So, having somebody take the burden of 2 people.
It's not doable.
going to happen.
Okay.
It just can't happen.
Yeah, and I only say that because I have to do it every day where I work.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to work twice as hard.
And we do as well. Krista covers the lab, but anytime somebody leaves, she may cover it for months. And that's just one example. So the numbers of employees that we have to me, are as low as they need to be.
Okay, well, let's do this because we're never going to get this done in 2 hours now. And we're not solving any problems today. I think between Keith and Donna, if you guys, let's focus on the number 3. And if that's what you guys want to make the focus, then let's make a decision in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm fine
We can-
with the base thing, it's the other issue. And
Yeah.
How you wanna handle it. Come up with
We'll
a
just
proposal.
Let's think about
change
it.
the numbers.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about it as far as if you 3 get together, then let's see what we can come up with. See, you. But,
I mean, ultimately for me, I'd like to know the backstory. You know, when I see something like this and I think 3%, my first thought is that what he wants? Or is that what he's submitted to? Because I don't get to have these conversations. I mean, we show up and we're assuming that all 5 of you get into a room and you stack hands and you agree that this is the most reasonable thing to do. I trust that that's what happens. But then again, you know, I don't want to find out that the 3 of us get to just say yes and no, and then, you know, 2 months later, Carol leaving because she's going to do a job making $5,000 more doing something else.
oh, no, she's not.
Yeah. You're the first blurry person I saw, so I just picked your name out of the hat. But yeah, but anyway,
Thank you.
okay.
So overall, said the health insurance hasn't been settled yet, or it's a 5% increase there in the budget. Starting from the departments, 911, well, 611 is our debt, of course, that just kind of decreased just a little bit because of the refunding, or the refinancing. And then 911, overall personnel, just incorporating those standard increases into the personnel area, maintenance and the operations, just some minor tweaks to a couple of those M&O items, with the largest being in contractual services to account for the revenue split between the InMotion, the VR machine, and for the photo booth. So that is an actual cash disbursement, so it is a cash, or it is an expense. Any questions on 911? 912, education. Here we kind of moved around some personnel. Dr. Anna Money was in this as the director of education, but she has been moved to 915. So there's that removal of the director of education. So we currently have 2 employees there at an education specialist 3 level. On the maintenance and operation, and just reduce some of the M&O expenses based on current year experience. Just rolled back some travel, added professional services for like a videographer or a photographer for symphony privacies. That's something that we have incurred in the past couple of years, so just budgeting for that. Any questions on 912?
Not really, just as a general thought, you know, I mentioned inflation as one possible issue. I was looking at the numbers. January, February, March of this year, it's been over 7.5% a month. You know, I would suggest to you that once you're about 6 months into this first fiscal year, you might want to just go back and look at your purchases and see, you know, have they tracked way higher than we've got in here or not? Because that would be a good early warning to the JAA, you know, if you see something going on like that. But hopefully, you know, part of this is the Putin factor, I'm sure. You know, who knows when that's going to get resolved.
And also, 912, we did do away with the printing and binding budget based on previous comments. 913, exhibits. This one has seen some price increases for animal feed, salt, and some other materials and supplies, animal acquisitions. So you'll see that increase there in materials and supplies. Everything else is kind of relatively left the same. Of course, across the board, we are increasing subscriptions, or the budget for subscriptions. We recently transitioned to a new, more expensive Microsoft license at the request of our IT director, and that is the increase there in subscriptions, specifically 2 exhibits. The team there requested an additional budget to help pay for a new database that they are exploring. So we are incorporating about a $5,000 budget to subscriptions to help pay for that. Any questions? And we are adding some personnel to 913. They have requested an aquarius apprentice full-time and 2 part-time laborers. 915, we removed the chief development officer position that was previously Andrea's position. The director of development and research was moved here from 912 from education. We used to have a general clerk part-time position that we removed. That position has been unfilled for quite a while. And we are also upgrading the marketing coordinator position up to a marketing and digital strategist to reflect what we currently have in that position. On the M&O side, for 915, reduce the printing and binding budget. We reduced professional services. The thought here is because of the state's marketing money. So because the state agreed to forego their 4.5% on sales tax and giving it back to the aquarium, you'll see a new line item down at the bottom of 5271, which is the state sales tax marketing. That expense matches the revenue. So we didn't want the revenue to help subsidize any other expense, so that's why we kept it the same.
Just a question for you, kind of an odd one on the printing and binding. I know when we had the 10-year anniversary, we put out a little bound book. Is there any thought of doing that on the 20th?
That's something we can discuss since you brought it up.
Okay, I didn't know.
Well, we're definitely gonna
I
plan.
remember we did that, like I said, for the 10-year, it was well received, and I didn't know if that was, something that we might consider doing, to give out to donors or something.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea and a good consideration, and we are gonna plan, things to celebrate our 20th year for sure.
Yeah.
And that definitely can be in there.
Yeah, we're, on the OS side, I know we're talking about maybe looking at potentially some kind of capital program.
Yeah, I think an event would be fitting for that, and a donor push along with that.
Yeah, very, very likely that will.
I think that's kind of what we need to focus on with that ring.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So the thought here is that some of the expenses that were previously booked to professional services, we can now utilize some of that out-of-state marketing money, just to kind of keep track of all of those expenses in case somebody from the state requests a report. Any questions on 915? 916 events. Here in M&O, just kind of roll back some of the material supplies based on current year performance. Roll back some of the printing and binding budget. We just reclassed what was previously booked to contractual down to professional. Some of those expenses, the definition of a contractual expense kind of just seems it's more a professional expense. We usually book cleaning the linens or character actors for birthdays. That's kind of more of a professional service than contractual, so just moving some budget around there. And also the software license. In the previous year, we had 15,000. I think that was, we were booking stuff like wedding magazines or subscriptions to that we no longer use or utilize. So that was just a rollback there.
Question for you. On materials and supplies, we seem to budget quite a bit more than we ever actually use, and that's been consistent for the last 4 years, if I remember. Any particular reason we're doing that, or is that one of the sneaky places?
I think that has been built up over before COVID, that how it got to the 114 or the 140. This one it is knowing that we may have a reduction in bigger events was an opportunity to kind of roll that back to 100,000.
Okay.
And some of the expenses that are booked there are kind of pass-through expenses where we pay for it, but we charge the person renting or booking the event that revenue, since it is an outflow, then that's an expense. $918 visitor services. This is all for our ticket agents. The increase here, before we were budgeting about 12, 13 ticket agents part-time, revising that number up to match reality. Over time, kind of added a part-time employee ticket agent. So that's the increase there. And also reflecting that we had to transition from a $9.50 an hour or $9.50 an hour to $11 plus the increase. On the M&O side, contractual services, this is where we book all the credit card fees, transaction fees. So as revenue goes up, the transaction fees for credit cards go up.
That's on a percent basis.
Correct. And then just reclassing professional services down to subscriptions. That professional service was our annual software agreement for AllTrue, which is the operating system for the aquarium. We're hoping to replace it, which is why you see the increase there, to try to give us some flexibility if we identify a suitable alternative. Because currently AllTrue is just not working how we would like it to work. $919 facilities. Here, the team requested an additional custodian in year one and a worker dedicated to maintenance in year one. And then in year two, an additional worker dedicated to maintenance. That's the increase there in personnel. And on the materials and operations side, vehicle parts and repairs in year one is higher than year two. That is to account for upgrades to the aquarium van that they have requested. I believe they want to fix the wrap, add cruise control, fix locks and latches, replace tires, and also purchase a plow for the truck to clean the parking lot. Utilities, we have experienced higher costs in utilities, so we're just adding more to that budget. And of course, insurance for the organization for the building, auto, general liability, increasing that just to give us some flexibility there in case premiums go up. We're currently working with Mark Tedford, but we don't have a quote right now. 920, most of this is just M&O, just reduced some of the line items to kind of match current year performance, just a slight decrease there. And I'm going to skip ahead to 940 so we can kind of come back and talk about the capital items. 940, these are the 4 people dedicated to building exhibits throughout the aquarium, just increasing the budget there for subscriptions to account for their Microsoft license for that cost. 923, JAA capital items. These are the items that the team have requested for year one and year two, replacing some of or having the budget to replace AC units as needed, whether it's on the stream or north unit on quarantine. There's a breastfeeding pod that was requested to allow mothers to feed their child in private.
For employees or visitors?
Visitors, but of course employees, but they won't have a baby with them there, but mainly for visitors. Because currently, right now, we vacate one of our offices to allow our guests to have some privacy.
Okay, enough said, thanks.
We have an ongoing security camera project where we try to replace or first, it took some time to find a suitable alternative or a good option for our security cameras and transitioning everything from like an analog to a digital DVR. So we have 25,000 there as this kind of ramps up. $40,000 in year 1 and year 2 to replace the existing wall graphics and exhibits as part of a flashboard, trying to make everything cohesive, the same design to match what was done in the jellyfish conflict exhibit. Correct.
That's correct. The new style graphics is replacing the plain sheetrock painted walls throughout the facility, so that's kind of an ongoing thing. We are skipping areas that we plan on major renovations, because it just wouldn't make sense to put something new up and then tear it back down. So yes, that's correct, Robert.
Great Hall paint and update, $30,000. That's kind of in line with the carousel project to try to do upgrades to the Great Hall, try to paint that gray to a more cheerful color.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my interior decorating hat on for that, like a cafe.
Handicap access, I believe this is in the deck area, right in the back.
That's correct. There's a door back there that leads to the deck and playground that does not have a handicap or an automatic door over there.
Peak access and lighting, I think the towers above the.
Yeah, that's correct. We have the pinnacle up there that was designed to have a light inside with windows, unfortunately, that do not open. So we literally cannot access that light, which has been out for quite some time. So we'd like to get that back to the way it's designed and have access to it.
Exterior lighting, trying to fix some areas that we have and add more to it. I believe the thought is uplighting, right?
We're looking into either uplighting or lighting around the eaves, the overhangs of the certain determined part of the aquarium.
This isn't the lighting project we've kicked around for years, is it?
It is.
It is?
It's just to kind of get something started,
Okay.
setting money aside to,
Gotcha.
since we don't have anything, just, we're gonna test.
Test it,
Okay.
and the way I see it going down is kind of staggering it over multiple budget, where we, kind of an ongoing project.
The carousel installation, that's the 70,000 for the engineering and also the foundation expenses. Bathroom upgrades, I believe there was the need to update the sinks in facilities.
Yeah, the bathrooms that are in poor condition, and the inside of the bathrooms, and so we have to, we need some upgrades in there.
The Jellyfish Touch project, this is the unused, what we estimate to be the unused portion of the amount that's already been approved, 70,000. So right now they incurred the cost of the tank and some additional expenses, graphics, the art from Chris Varela.
Yeah, we're probably with the tank, somewhere in the $35,000 range right now. That's what we've incurred so far.
Roof repairs added in the main building. This is what we currently have in the current year, just a budget that we haven't been able to get to that project yet, that we're asking to be rolled forward to year 1. Database infrastructure, that's with the exhibits database that they're looking at, 5,000. Chainmail suit, 7,500. There's it used to be 5,000. There's the cost of inflation. That's small Zamboni to clean the facility, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's to clean the floors, the hard surfaces.
And then an outside freezer that is currently in this year's budget, but they do not see spending the money right now or until the end of, or by the end of June, so they asked to roll forward into the next fiscal year. Any questions?
No, sir.
You know, we talked about during the flooding and cold and all that stuff, did we resolve the situation with the generators?
So we have 3 generators currently on site. Of the 3, one of them is new, that's on the wet lab, so that one is, does not need attention. The worst off generator is on the shark quarantine, which will be replaced, when we rebuild the new facility. The main generator for, the entire facility, or as far as the main part of the facility, is aging, but is still in good shape. It will need, some repairs, preventative maintenance. And eventually I do believe we need to replace that, but I don't think we're there at this point. But I don't think it's that far off.
And construction for the shark quarantine, that budget would be a supplemental when the contract to award the bid, awarding the bid comes before the awarding, so we have budgeted for that.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Sir?
Sorry?
Anything else?
No.
Finished? Okay. Mr. Stroud, anything before we move on to item 2?
Do we want to go ahead and recommend this budget with a caveat that when it comes before the JAA, we will have a recommendation on the salary situation? Or do you want to meet again just to talk about that?
Either way.
If we do meet again, can we like squeeze it into under an hour?
Oh, if you have one issue,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but seriously. What do you want to do? I can meet again if you want.
Yeah, I can too.
What's easy for you?
I think it'll be short, it's
Yeah,
just.
okay.
You're
Then we'll-
We'll either like it or we won't.
Yeah, then we'll request a table item 2 to the next meeting.
Well, can we, okay. Best way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we think maybe somebody next week or week after? I mean, that way we can kind of stay on the schedule to get everything approved through JAA and all that.
When is JA again?
Second, it'll be like May.
Okay, so we got a while.
Yeah, so if we can try to meet within the next 2 weeks, we could potentially have at our May 17th or whatever that date is, have the budget.
You okay with that?
Hmm?
You have any reservations? You're smiling and giggling and squeezing and everything's going on in your body language.
I would say just go ahead and approve it. We can present our plan later, and if there is an additional cost to it, and if there will be, do a supplemental appropriation, just to kind of get the ball rolling on.
All right, so you're one of those personality types where you'll walk out of the room, if we can get this somewhat done, you're gonna feel all weird inside.
He's got a lot of other stuff.
You want
I mean, that was
something-
my initial recommendation is,
Yeah.
can we just recommend this budget with the caveat, we're gonna edit the
I would say let's do that.
Yeah.
cell
I'd
personnel
be fine with
expense.
Okay, can you wanna make
I'll
that?
make that motion.
Okay, so moved on what he said.
Second.
Okay. Let's vote on item 1.
2.
Item 2, as was gracefully said by somebody.
Boucher,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Chair Box.
Yes. Everybody happy?
Yeah.
All right, good. Let's
Move to adjourn.
Second.
vote, please.
Boucher,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Chair Box.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Jacob Way.